Hey everybody, it's Alex Miller at Capnion here. Please forgive my congestion. I'd like to analyze for you a couple interlinked news stories that came out about Amazon in the past few days. One, they announced another large investment in Anthropic, which is a startup that makes large language models, among other things. And Amazon also announced they're in the early stages of trying to enter the chip making business. I think these announcements are interesting and worth spotlighting for you because they exactly highlight two of the most important strategic stories about advanced AI in business right now, which is on the software side, there's a pretty extreme bottleneck of talent of the people who really know how to get large language models working smoothly. And then on the hardware side, a lot of these advanced new AI models require specialized chips, and there's just not many people that make the chips or know how to make them. And I guess finally, big tech is oddly a little bit behind. So let me begin with the software side. How should we read into that Amazon is making this investment? To zoom out a little bit, you could look at the broader landscape of the big tech companies. Google, for a really long time, was supposed to be the leader in this area. They've had some very high profile stumbles. I don't think people really think they're number one right now. If you look at Microsoft, they've made really big investments in OpenAI, just as Amazon has been investing in Anthropic. What's the story here? All these large companies had internal teams working on these technologies. So there's an implicit statement here, lack of confidence in that internal work. If they could be doing these things totally in-house and blowing Anthropic or OpenAI away, they would be. And you can look at Google and see a big tech company that's gone their own way and tried to do things in-house, and they haven't had a really good time. How can it be that these giant big tech companies that were supposed to be the leaders in this technology forever are having so much trouble? To answer this question, you could notice how incestuous the personnel at these different startups, how incestuous that world is, and that Anthropic is a sort of colony of people that left OpenAI. It's just the same names over and over again. There's a pretty extreme bottleneck of talent, and in particular, there's a whole lot of specialized knowledge about just how to jiggle the handle on an 85% functioning LLM and get it to something that you can expose to the world without embarrassment. And why aren't these people working at the big tech companies? Well, this is where the ethical aspect and the history of that conversation comes in. A lot of these people are working at these startups because they feel more like the technology is going to help society in a sane way, and they don't have that kind of confidence about big tech. So you could look at history of high-profile departures from Google, for example. A lot of the key people that really have the sauce don't feel ethically great about these big tech companies, and they're working at OpenAI and Anthropic. So big tech is behind on the software front because of talent and talent's relationship with those big companies. On the chip making side, to shift gears to the finance world, if you're a fan of numbers that go up, you might be a fan of NVIDIA's stock price. And I believe they've passed most or all of the big tech companies in market capitalization after their big surge. What's the reason for this? They're the main manufacturer of the kind of advanced chips you need to get these AI models working at reasonable speed. And it's interesting to note, for a really long time, you may have heard of Moore's Law, the idea that you can just make chips better by making the circuit pathways on the board smaller, on and on and on. And we're near the end of that. What's happening now is more producing qualitatively different chips for particular tasks. And these AI models require chips that can handle a very, very high level of parallelization doing awful linear algebra. And if you didn't understand that sentence, a lot of people watching the video don't. And that's kind of the point. It's rather arcane. You need a special chip to do special math. And there's a lot of story about how to get that. NVIDIA notably began as a manufacturer of graphics cards. And graphics cards for you to play Unreal Tournament or whatever have very similar requirements, where there's a lot of parallelized linear algebra kind of computations that you need to get done real fast to provide a particular kind of experience. So NVIDIA has been vaguely doing this forever, and it worked out really nicely for them that there's this massive surge in demand for fancy chips that are pretty close to what they've been making forever for the purposes of graphics cards. NVIDIA has been having a nice time not being able to satisfy demand, and that you can charge kind of whatever you want for these chips. If you're a company that can get them, you might feel really excited that the company up the street maybe just can't get them at any price. And this is a really important factor in the story for all the people out there that are trying to build their own large language model and their own data or similar. Can this last forever? Maybe, probably not. On the hardware side, a part of the story is it just requires really massive investment to do something new with chips. You don't make a new high-tech computer chip in your garage, and you certainly don't manufacture it there, realistically. So I think this move at least is proto-sensible from Amazon of, well, if you're a giant company and you've got a kind of hard-charging reputation, you've kind of pissed off the talent and they don't want to work for you to do the software side, well, it's maybe more appealing that you could get some leverage strategically by moving into chip making because you're really big and you can make those really big investments. And once again, there's lots and lots of demand out there. I think a closing thought, I invite everyone listening to this to just contemplate, what do we really want to do with AI? Everybody sees the potential. I think it's a super interesting story, and if you're interested too, please reach out to me. The nuances of what you use it for and what kind of rules you make in the workplace and training and just general people, process, and application of AI, I really think that's where the action is. And just to kind of provide contrast to this, who's really making money with AI now? Well, I think it's people that sell chips for the rest of us to experiment with it and be intimidated and work on those applications. Once again, if you like numbers that go up, NVIDIA's stock price and revenue are a great example, and I think a relatively singular story of who's profiting from AI in your grandfather's sense of profit of, well, it cost me 85 cents to make this and you gave me $1. Awesome. The big picture of AI, once again, is about these two bottlenecks. There's a software bottleneck of talent. There's a hardware bottleneck of chips. And this Amazon news story is great for touching both of those narratives and giving you a little bit of room to look into Amazon's head about how are they reacting to these situations.